Hi, everybody. It's your grief guide, Lisa. We've been talking to some incredible people who have experienced deep grief, deep pain in their lives. And today I have my friend Laura with me. And Laura has lost a few siblings. And so she is going to share her story with us today. Thanks for being here.
Of course.
Yeah.
Privilege.
Tell us about your brothers and your family and your journey.
Thank you. So we're talking about siblings. Unfortunately, probably could go through the list of many people that we've lost, but I lost my brother Danny in 2014. He was 42 years old, and we lost him from a mental health illness. And I lost my brother Bob in 2023, so he's more recent. He died of liver failure. So it's been a cross and a burden and a struggle, both for different reasons and different situations, but regardless, it's a loss, and just dealing with that as a sibling, it's not something that's not how the journey of life is supposed to go. That path is not supposed to be. So my brother Bob was an older brother, and my brother Danny was a younger brother from me. So it's been a journey for sure.
And what is that, what does that feel like, Laura, in the family dynamic system of both of your brothers?
Sure. I come from a large family. There's 8 siblings and my parents. My dad was here when we lost my brother Danny, and as a family unit, initially it was almost unbearable. It was just such an agonizing journey for all of us, especially my parents. To lose a son, he was 42 years old, and just to say that it was a blind side, it was just so incredibly unexpected for all of us. I think my parents were at Culver's having a fish sandwich, and they had gotten the news. They came home. It was very, very traumatic. My younger sister and I were actually in Minneapolis when we got the news, and we kind of lost our minds for a bit. We really, really did. And that was just a very long, grueling time period. Very, very traumatic to think of. With my brother Bob, it was more of a progressive loss. We knew he was ill, and I was actually in California with my mom, thank God, and we had gotten a call that he was declining quickly, so her and I came home and spent a couple days, trying to figure the situation out with him and his family, and then eventually he passed. So it's difficult. It's just unfathomable that this life process sort of unfolds in a very, very unexpected way. I think for my parents, my heartache, we lost my dad in 2017, so that was a few years after we lost Danny, and then quite a few years before we lost my brother Bob. So my mom carries the cross of a mom losing children, I mean, as you know, but it's difficult. It's very, very difficult. So,
sometimes they say that sibling loss, they call that the forgotten mourners, because so much of the focus, as you said, is on your parents and taking care of them and making sure they're okay. So how have you been able to navigate that to make sure that you're paying attention to your grief as well?
And that's very, very important. Both of my brothers have families, so there were children, and there was wives, and all of those things. I've always tried to make sure that I put a focus on myself, but it is even sometimes it's hard to even look beyond myself, because yes, I'm forgotten in the sense that I'm not the important people regardless of their life, but I've tried to always make sure that my grief is a focus also. It has to be, because if it's forgotten, then it's unhealthy for sure. But like I said, we have a very large family network. I really didn't feel in either situations that my grief was secondary. My parents were very mindful of all of us. My personality, though, I tried to carry some of that grief of others, and just wanting to relieve some of that burden. But I think grief just sort of puts your attention where it needs to be. And I know for myself, it was on their families and their children who were gracious in their return, especially my brother Bob's children who are older. And it was almost a group grief per se. So it wasn't, I see what you're saying. I think, I do think in some of the losses that I've had, I haven't been able to share myself, that you just need to, I can't give anymore. I can't do anymore, that I just really needed to focus on myself. It's difficult to spread yourself like that, but I don't feel like it's been forgotten. I could see where that would maybe be, but I don't. In both scenarios, there was a generous bringing in of all of us. So maybe that's unique. But.
Yeah, well, and I would also say I think you make a good point about, I forget now the way you just said it, but it was really good. Something about like grief helps us see what matters, right? And so in your own pain, obviously, of losing your brothers, it also made you super aware that there were children grieving their children, your nieces and nephews, right? And so that's what matters.
Yes,
and
it does.
And that's, I always say there can be gifts in grief, right? And maybe those are some of the gifts where we're not completely neglecting our grief, but we also see that sometimes we just need to show up for those we love because they need it too.
Of course.
And
I think there's different paths that people take in grief. I'm a doer and a fixer, but it's okay too just to be someone who's present. It's okay just to experience your own grief. You don't have to, it doesn't have to be an active thing. It can be something where you're just present.
Yes, gosh, I love that. Yes, that's such a good point. And I hope everybody listening hears that, right? Because I have this thing where I talk about, like, in this world that we live in of self-help and achievement and producing, that often gets attached to grief. So now we feel like we're in some competition that we have to like hit the goal line or something.
Be profound.
Yeah, right? Exactly. Right. So thank you for saying that, right? We can just show up and just be present and learn to be present to our own grief, and that's okay. Like, it's okay. We're not in a competition.
Sure.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that. So if you had to say like one or two things that you have found to be really helpful to you in your journey, like, what would those be?
I think the most thing is that there's not a way to grieve. There's not a path or a guidebook. I mean, grief is so unique and so individual, and you almost just have to experience it. Our good Lord gives us the gift of time, and I think every day is maybe one step forward and two steps back. And time is a gift, and it's a blessing from our Lord, and He gives us that so that we can ponder and complete what we need to do in our life and in our hearts and such. So I think that time is a very much of a valuable gift that our Lord gives us, and just to take advantage of it and know that in time our grief kind of moves a bit. I think that it moves from the forefront to the side, and we're able to kind of tuck it, and it's taken a long time. It's oftentimes moved back to the front, and whether it be a moment or a song or a situation or wherever it might be, but I think eventually, hopefully, grief kind of tucks itself to the side a bit. You're never gonna lose it completely or forget about the person or the situation, but it allows us time. It allows us to be able to kind of tuck it a bit.
Yeah, agreed. The way I would say it too, because people ask me like, Lisa, is it going to hurt this much so intensely all the time? And I'm saying what you're saying, but just in a different way. Like, I would say it softens.
Yes.
Right. Like, you always know it's there, as you said. Like, it's there, and you'll never get away from that.
Correct.
But it kind of fades and softens a little.
And for some people, though, that time is different. And that's whether, I'm not normal, or why is it so... Right. There's just no right or wrong into how long that happens or when that happens.
Yes.
And it's okay either way. Some people are able to process and sort of tuck a little bit, where others, it's so raw for so long. but it's just different. And I think that's just another thing with grief, and coming from such a large family where we've been all so different on how we've handled it, and they're all good.
Yeah.
You know, there's no, better or worse scenario in regards to grieving, but yeah, it's a journey. It's a journey, and it's unfortunate, but everyone's going to experience a loss, and how we handle it. And I guess that would be the good that would come from it. I look back on, what are the fruits of this? And for me, especially with my younger brother, the discussion of mental health and discussing that thing has been a huge gift. It's become a very prominent part of my life and how I move forward. But if we can maybe somehow at some point find what is the good that has come, not that it's a better thing by any means, but it's an opportunity to grow and to have a little bit of peace into why life unfolds the way it does sometimes. So.
Yeah, no, I think that's beautiful, and I think for people listening, just the idea of what you said, both things, like the way we go through it, and I want everybody to hear that again, right? That there is no right way, there is no one path, there is no formula, there is no strategy, there is no step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Correct.
And nobody gets to tell anybody else how to grieve.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I think another most important thing is you're not alone.
Yes.
You are not walking this path by yourself.
Yes.
Unfortunately, I always say in the group that I get together with, you don't know until you know.
Yes.
And when you're part of that group that knows, it's not quite as burdensome in that there are people feeling your pain. You're not alone.
Thank you, because that's a myth of grief, right? I think it's a myth that's out there in our culture that no one will understand me. No one knows how I feel.
Yeah.
That is, and it only leads then grieving people to more isolation, right? And so it's not true. Like we might. Now, I haven't lost brothers, but I always say pain speaks to pain. When you sit in that group, your group, when you sit in that group, you don't have to explain that. You don't have to explain it, and you're not alone.
100%.
And that's the beauty of community and the bonding of pain.
Yes.
And so that's so important. And
absolutely.
I hope everybody listening hears that.
And that's not always easy, taking that first step to get within a group or to speak to someone or call someone or whatever that is. It's not an easy thing to do, but it's a healthy thing to do for sure. Yeah. For your own mental and physical health, it's important to reach out if you're able to, for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So.
Do you have any last word?
I don't, in that there is hope. You say what else has grown in regards since I've lost my brothers, my faith, my connection with my siblings and my parents. My mom especially, we share a bond that is, it's difficult to put to words, but that there is a connection there in regards to that. But be graceful, be kind to yourself, drink lots of water,
yes,
and take care of yourself, because it's important. I think the thing that I get solace in too is I know my brothers would want us to be happy. I know they would want us to live a life that is joyful and love-filled. And I do try to remember that with them. I don't doubt that they would want us to be happy. Yeah. So to live life for that purpose is important.
Sure, absolutely.
Live with that, so.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I appreciate you being with us. And everybody take care, and we'll see you again soon.